Hi, I'm Dr. Chavi Goldberg, and I founded CyberSem. Continuing from last week when we were discussing Parsha Zachor, we were discussing the message of Amalek who wanted to try and convince the Jewish people that when they would enter Eretz Yisrael, their relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu was going to change drastically. Hashem doesn't get involved in the little details of your lives, they complained. They argued. He is too aloof for things like that. So let's take this message of Amalek and see how we find it in the Megillah, and Amalek being the prototype of our Yetzer Hara, how this affects us and how it applies to us personally. When Mordechai heard that Achashverosh had signed the deal to destroy the entire Jewish people in one day, Esther got wind of what he was doing. He donned sackcloth, and she wanted to send him clean clothes, and he said no, and she needed to know what was going on. And so she sent her helper Hasach, who was really Daniel. So she sent Hasach to the gate where Mordechai was sitting to find out what was going on. And so this is the conversation between Hasach and Mordechai. Vayaged lo Mordechai, and Mordechai told him to Hasach, Eskol asher karahu, everything that happened to him. But let's look at that word karahu. It's not really what happened to him, because the Medrash in Esther Rabbah wants to know that if it really wanted to say asher karahu, that which happened to him, it would have said asher kara loi. What is this karahu business? And so Mordechai, the answer to that question is that Mordechai was sending Esther a message in secret code that they both understand that they would both understand that the person that wants to come and destroy Bnei Yisrael is the great grandson of the nation Karahu. Who is that nation Karahu? Well, when we go back to the Chumash, we know that the Chumash describes talks about the Amalek nation as being asher karcha baderech, using the very same word, who happened upon you, who chanced upon you. Not really chanced upon you, because Amalek, we know from last week, came a very long distance in order to fight with Bnei Yisrael. But the Torah uses the word asher karcha, the same shorish, kuf reish, to describe Amalek, and Karahu is the grandson of Karahu, of Amalek, is the one who is rising against us now. They didn't refer to Haman by name, just by the word Karahu. When Haman came home from Esther's first party, he told Zeresh everything asher Karahu. He used the same term about himself. Again, the same word. Amalek was not stupid. He was the grandson of Avram Avinu. He came from a very prestigious family, the most prestigious family in the entire world. But this principle of Hashem's distance, lies at the heart of everything that they stand for. And that is in the Yetzer Hara of each and every one of us. The world is random, they say, without hashkacha. There is Hashem in the world, but we only find him in the nisim, the miracles, in the big events, not in the everyday details of our lives. But most importantly, to the regular person, we feel sometimes insignificant, that what I do doesn't matter. I can do a mitzvah, but how does that impact Hashem? How does that impact the world? And so let's look at this a little bit deeper. The world is not random. Look through the parshios of Yosef HaTzadik when Yosef HaTzadik is in Mitzrayim. We're going to compare that to the story of Esther Hamalka in the Megillah. Neither of them have Hashem's name written it even once. There's 3 parshios that are talking about Yosef HaTzadik where Hashem's name is also not there. There's a message between this. Everything and their entire story of the two of them, of Yosef HaTzadik and Esther Hamalka, they were sent far away. There's parallels to their lives. They were sent far away from their homes, from where their parents were, and they became leaders in royalty. Yosef Atzadik became the Mishnah Lamelech in Mitzrayim, and Esther became the queen in the Persian Empire that was enormous in those days. And in those places, and they gained tremendous strength as Jewish leaders, but it doesn't give the name of Hashem even once. Everything in the Purim story seems to be just a mikra, just a coincidence, just like that same word of karahu, the same shorish, the same message, the same root word, the same message. Just the stories seem to be a series of disconnected events without any connection to Hashem and no connection to his master plan. But when we do observe the nisim involved in the Megillah and in the life of Yosef Atzadik, we see the connection. That is where we find Hashem. When we look in those seemingly disconnected pieces, we see that that is where Hashem is found. We are the masks that cover over Hashem's running of nature. It appears that we conduct our lives according to our own plans, but in fact we act with Hashem remaining behind the curtains, being the true director of the show. Fascinating thought. I thought about long and hard before I condensed this into this talk. Amalek did not understand that nature is simply the external facade by which Hashem has given us to cover over his involvement in the world, that he is the true driving force. Nature is the vessel, is the keli by which Hashem makes his plan happen in our physical world. I'm saying this slowly. I want it to sink in. These are fabulous, fabulous ideas. And we evoke the revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of Hashem, when we do extra mitzvahs and we bring in spirituality into our lives. A very quick story is told of a man who was a shochet in Israel, and he was such an excellent, he was just skilled shochet that people from outside of Eretz Yisrael wanted to give him a contract and wanted him to work for them. But he really didn't want to leave Eretz Yisrael. So what happened? He wrote a letter to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he told him what he wanted, that he didn't really want to leave Eretz Yisrael, but he was concerned about Parnassa for his family. He wanted to adequately provide for them. And so the Rebbe told him that he should take on some new commitment, some new learning in Torah, different mitzvah that he should do more particularly, and he should not go travel outside of Eretz Yisrael. Well, because the man evoked a piece of spirituality, a special piece of spirituality into his life, then that affected him physically so that he was able to earn a very, very respectable livelihood without having to leave Eretz Yisrael and without having to need to come to leaving Eretz Yisrael for his parnasa. And so the spiritual, it becomes the key to an enhanced physical existence. As we approach Purim, and I know that I'm talking a little bit longer than I really should be, but Purim, I think, deserves this, the message that we can really take to heart in the entire Purim story. Please read the Megillah in this light and take every opportunity to include Hashem's perspective and his presence wherever you turn. I was inspired to write about this Amalek message both last week and this week from a talk given by Rabbi Schneur Ashkenazi on his WhatsApp group from Parshas Zachor. Wishing you a very, very freilich Purim and only good health for everyone and your families. Simchas Purim.